Here in the Northern Rockies, dark winter months are outlasted in basements, dens, and nooks where kindred souls gather together to share intel, swap fly patterns, and relive the memories from seasons past. This gathering spot, known locally as the February Room, is the inspiration for this podcast. No matter the season, the door is always open to those with a fly fishing story to tell. Brought to you by CD Fishing USA, the North American distributor for composite development fly rods and accessories. 40 years of Kiwi ingenuity and graphite technology, now available at cd-fishing.us or your local CD USA dealer. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And remember to go fishing. Here's your host, the Carnops, and this is the February Room.
My introduction to fly fishing occurred on a brisk March day on Idaho's Big Wood River. Outfitted with loaner waders and boots from my soon-to-be father-in-law, several sizes too big, I quickly followed Justin across the stream, and as I took my second step into the icy river, I promptly lost my footing and fell into the drink. Chilled to the bone, I slowly shuffled my way back to the car and waited for my body temperature to return to normal. It took me a while to revisit fly fishing after that introduction, mostly because Justin and I were two broke TV employees and couldn't afford coughing up hundreds of dollars for waders and women's fishing gear for a newbie trying out the new sport. Had there been a resource for me getting on the water without breaking the bank, I might have been able to share some more fishing adventures on this podcast. Well, as the saying goes, times have changed. And today my guests, Temma, Roby, and Julia Mitchell, are dedicated to breaking economic barriers and getting more women on the water by providing donated or used gear so no woman can say, I would like to try, I just can't afford it. And thank you both for joining me. We have Temma and Julia all the way from California.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk about this Rising to the Fly organization that you guys have created to break these barriers, economic barriers. But before we go into that, who has a fishing story for me?
I can go first.
All right, that's Temma?
Yes, this is Temma. So one of my probably favorite fishing stories, I've been fishing in May, it'll be 2 years I'll have been fly fishing. And I feel like I've worked really, really hard to become an independent angler, to be able to go out and do my own thing, to be able to land fish. And I was actually up in Oregon fishing the Rogue in January. And I hooked into just a monster steelhead. And I was so excited. And it was a little bit of a shit show because I couldn't reach my net. And I had my GoPro on so you could hear me like huffing and puffing and trying to get the steelhead in, and he would run and then he'd bring him back and he'd run. And I get him all the way to the net, doesn't fit in my net. So snaps everything off and takes off. And in a normal, like 6 months ago, I would have sat there for hours going, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? And I didn't. And I was so excited that I had that opportunity and that I was able to get it to the net and just lost it. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy this moment that I did this by myself. I'm in the middle of the Rogue. There's no one around and I can do this. And so for me, that's one of my favorite stories is I finally am like, yeah, I'm not going to beat myself up anymore over this.
Good for you. Because that is the truth, right? Beating yourself up when you have a fish catch and you don't, I don't know, it doesn't connect. I mean, I can't even tell you this one time I was casting to a fish and I think he tried to eat my dry fly. He gave me 3 chances. I mean, 3. And I couldn't stick it. And I look at this and, talking about the huffing and puffing, I was like so flustered. And it's great that with time, you can be able to be like, reflect on how awesome the experience is rather than the disappointment. So good for you. I'm super impressed.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Well, and going back to kind of the beginning of my introduction to Rising to the Fly, Julia, can you give a little bit of information of what this organization is?
Absolutely. So it was really interesting because I have had this idea, the kernel of the idea, for probably years. I have been fishing. I've been fishing since 1999. And I had these fly fishing shirts, nice, really nice shirts, and they didn't fit anymore. And I thought, gosh, it's just such a shame to give these to, Goodwill or Salvation Army or something where they're not going to be used for fishing. And I thought it would be really nice if I could give them, pay it forward to someone who likes to fly fish, who's a size medium. And so I thought about it. I kind of explored different avenues and I didn't really act on it. And then I had joined a group, started a group called NorCal Women on the Fly, and with a couple other women. And it was this idea I had continued to have about, not just clothing, but equipment. And could we get equipment and then, do sort of the loaner programs? And I had thought about calling it NorCal Closet. And when Temma joined NorCal Women on the Fly, I talked to her about it. And she really liked the idea, the concept. And the more we talked about it, she came to me one day and said, I think we should really do this. And I said, okay. And she said, well, and I said, well, I don't know if it's a great fit for NorCal Women on the Fly. And she said, well, what if we just did it together? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. And so we started brainstorming about it and we started thinking about, it should be across the United States for sure, and kind of what we wanted to do with it. And she said, okay, so are we going to do this? Is this going to happen? And I said, yeah, let's do it. So in August on a phone call, we made the decision. And then we were like, well, what are we going to call it? And I said, how about Rising to the Dry? And she said, yeah, Rising to the Fly. And I said, yes, actually, that's better. We'll go with that. So that's how Rising to the Fly came to be. And, we got cracking on it. One of the great things is Temma and I work at the same speed, which is full speed ahead. So she got working on all of the documentation and everything we need to fill out and to become a 501c3. And I started working on the website and social media handles and getting it all up and running and going. And we officially launched in October, early October.
Wow, that is incredible. Temma, what made you interested in joining this?
Oh, well, I have a pretty strong background working with nonprofits, and I absolutely love fly fishing. And one of the big things about fly fishing for me is just the mental health aspect and being able to be outside, finding kind of my peaceful place. And so the thought of helping other women be able to kind of find the same thing, whether that's what they're after or not, was really, really intriguing. And so when Julia mentioned it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is like a bucket list thing. I get to take what I'm completely passionate about and tie it into something that's helping other women. This is amazing. So when she approached me with it, I was super excited.
Well, and wouldn't you say it's fair, Julia, that there's an increase of women into the fly fishing sport without a doubt. But a lot of we weren't handed down rods. Like normally the outdoor gear seemed to be handed down to grandsons or, to the boys. And so what I think is so great about Rising to the Fly is that women who do not have someone who's handing them down the outdoor gear, this is a way to kind of get you into a sport that is can be very expensive and very intimidating in that when you look at the dollar sign. Wouldn't you say that's true, Julia?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I talk about is, there is 100% a perception that, fly fishing is a old white male sport that you need to spend thousands of dollars to participate in. And I always say that it is a kernel of truth. It certainly has been that way for a while, but it is absolutely changing. And the thing I like to say about the equipment and the gear and the cost is the fish don't know. The fish don't know what you spent on this. The fish don't know how much you spent on your waders or your rod or the reel. Like, they don't know. So it doesn't matter. And you can get out there and participate with, a $200 rod and reel get up or a 2000, but the fish don't know. So it's really about opening up those doors and making sure that people, and women in our case, know that there are absolutely opportunities. And we're so excited to help women really find that.
Yeah, I say that on this podcast all the time. Temma, have you had some experiences with other people who have used Rising to the Fly, and what was their experience or any feedback that these clothes have provided them?
So we've helped probably a little over a handful of women so far. They have been some in state, some out of state, and it is so awesome to just see how excited and happy they are to be able to get a rod or a pair of waders. We had somebody in the Midwest ask for some equipment, and she said, "I can't wait to get out and teach my daughter." And I said, "Well, does your daughter need gear?" And she said, "Oh my gosh, that would be great." And I said, "Okay, how old is she?" And she's 13. And so I packaged up a couple rods and a couple reels and some leader and tippet and indicators and sent it out to her. And she said, I am so excited. The email was just so, I sent it to Julia and I said, "This is why." And she said, "Yes, this is why." And it was just such a moment of, we are making a difference.
You guys are creating gratitude, which is this act of like, it's this brain chemistry that like when you're giving and people are receiving, it creates all this great chemistry. So amazing. Like this, are Temma, are people able to request, like, if say there's somebody who's listening right now in Wisconsin, or somebody from Montana, and they obviously need some, maybe they need some different products, right? Someone's gonna go pike fishing, they want an 8 weight, someone's gonna go some small streaming, they need 3 weight. Are they able to put some request?
So far, what has happened is they will fill out. We have a really short application on our website, and if it's gear, it comes to me, and I'll ask questions like, "Where are you fishing? What are you fishing for? What's your kind of your fly fishing experience?" And then based on that, I will send them out what I think would work. Now, with waders and boots, Julia had this great idea of, go to the Orvis site or the Sim site and figure out what the sizing is, because we're trying
Right.
to avoid getting into shipping it out. No, it doesn't fit, shipping it back. Right. And so we really want to try to match as closely as possible with what the needs are. And so I think that's worked well so far.
I was just, as you're kind of talking about the products and like, different usage of it, Julia, for example, like I'm about to go head to Mexico in May. And I rarely go to Mexico, but it does feel like there's this whole new gear that I need to get set up for, especially just attire. Is that something where you're thinking like, hey, this program could also be very helpful for people who are going to go try different destinations? Or does it have to be like, we really want to cater this to people who are unable to afford fly fishing gear?
Well, we try to, it's an interesting question because we really try to target women who can't necessarily afford to go out and buy the equipment or the gear new. So we really focus on that. But here's another interesting thing that I have found. There are things, when you start a nonprofit, there are things you think that are going to happen that don't, and things that you don't think are going to happen are. And one of the things that I went into this thinking was, well, we're just going to have a really hard time finding enough people to donate stuff, and it's going to be a real slog. And, but we're going to have so many women reaching out to us all the time. And, and how are we going to manage that? And it's kind of actually been the opposite of that. We have received an unbelievable amount of donations. The fly fishing community has stepped up and really helped out. We have had individuals who have given gently used equipment. We have had fly fishing stores that have run fundraisers and given us all kinds of equipment. We've got, companies like Red Truck that have given us discounts on fly rods. I mean, it's just, there's a lot that the community has really stepped up and supported us. And then finding women to actually be the recipients has been more of the challenge. We're constantly out there, trying, beating the drums and saying, hey, please, let us know. And we do get some, and I think, as we build awareness, we'll get more. Temma and I are working on some partnerships with groups that take women fly fishing, that we feel like we could come in after they've done the seminars or the sessions or the classes and say, hey, was that fun? Did you enjoy it? Would you like to continue to do it? Is there anything that we could help provide? But I think that there is this overall sense from women, and I think it's a societal thing, and it's something that I really want to start digging in deep on, is that women feel like, oh, I don't want to ask for that. I don't want to ask for something. I bet there is a woman out there who needs it more than I do. And it's like, no, please ask us. Like, we just had it recently where a woman that we know had, she told us that her float tube had popped. And we were like, hey, we have 4. We are happy to give you one. And she was like, oh, no, I'm sure there's somebody that needs it more. And I'm like, you just told me that you had to borrow money to pay your rent. Like, please let us give you a float tube. So, it's just, I think there's just a mentality of, oh, I'm sure there's someone who needs it more than I do, that we're trying to overcome and really develop, the sense of, this is for you. This is, women out there, this is for you. Please, take advantage of it. Help us help you.
Well, and I think that's very well said, because I think, I mean, obviously everything's getting more expensive, like heating bill, gas bill. I thought they sent the wrong heating bill to the wrong house. I called them. I was like, so I think you guys did our reading. You were meant to, and they're like, no, like, and I looked at them like, oh my gosh, everything is going up. And I think also like our, what you were just saying, like how we're like, oh, I don't need this right now, because at some point things are going to get better, right? Like I'm going to be not in this. And so I want to make sure that I don't take something that I don't need in case things get better later. And the first things we probably tend to cut out in our lives is, anytime we're like, where can you cut out expenses, right? You're like, is it fly fishing gear? Is it coffee? You just start ripping off the biggest Band-Aid, which is the expense of fishing, these recreationals. So I think it's really important for people to remember that you don't need to take away something that brings you joy, that gets you outside. I mean, I just think being outside is the catalyst for just mental health. I always think that. I'm like, how do people not go outside and just connect, whether you're good at it or not?
And right, so now things are getting more stressful because your heating bill is double or triple, and eggs are costing a fortune, and all of this is stressful. This is the antidote to stressful. This is go out, it ties back full circle to the mental health and the stress release and getting out there and just like being peaceful and relaxing. So it's yet another reason why, please, like, let us help you have this moment of Zen, if you will.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Temma, what if are you just taking strictly women's wear, or maybe there's someone listening on the podcast and like, I have some of these amazing small waders. They're men's, but they could easily,
Yeah, we will take anything. We would like, we prefer it gently used. Obviously, we would love it if the waders did not have any significant tears, rips, or, that sort of thing. But waders and boots, we take, men's as well. And we've
That's
had
awesome.
stuff donated from a lot of men. It's been pretty awesome.
I mean, is there something that it's all fishing related? So you guys are even willing, you're talking about rafts, floaties. I mean, pretty much like if someone has some extra spare, tippet, are you looking for pretty much the the whole gamut?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I would say in my, I have a lot of stuff here. So I've got reels, I have rods, I have leader and tippet, I have flies, I have indicators, um, I have packs. So like, chest, a vest or a chest pack or a sling pack. I mean, I must have 8 packs here. Fly fishing bags to carry the gear. I think Julia has waders, boots, and more of the like shirts, jackets.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of stuff.
Where are you guys keeping all this stuff?
Well, I have 4 float tubes in my garage, so
That is awesome.
I think the only thing we don't take are, which we have been offered, but we just don't really have a need for is fly tying materials. But we have
Okay.
redirected people and said, hey, reach out to these different groups that may be interested. But otherwise, I mean, sunglasses for me doing the sort of the garb, I've got sunglasses and shirts, and I've got, neck gaiters and, the waders, the boots. And yeah, we definitely take men's, especially since not all women are smalls. So, bigger, larger waders can be great. And, we take it all.
If people are donating, some of this stuff can be pretty expensive. Are they able to maybe get a receipt that, like, for tax reasons? They're like, oh,
100%.
like when you go to Goodwill, you're like, hey, do you want you're like, yeah, I do want this.
I have a form and I just say, please tell me the value of what you're sending, and I will happily send you a letter that states that and has all of our nonprofit tax ID on there, and you can submit it with your taxes. 100%. Yeah,
See, see, you give and you get a little bit back, right? Uncle Sam can help you out there.
that's
that's
right.
right.
Julia, what would you like to see happen with Rising to the Fly in the future? Like your goals, what you see in the next 5 years with Rising to the Fly.
My hopes and dreams are that we can really work to partner with some organizations that help women fly fishing and really be that connective tissue of, there are groups out there that, and some of them we're talking to, but I'd love to see this really build nationally of working with them and saying, okay, you have taken these women out on a weekend, and they've learned how to fish. And now what we want to do is follow up with them and say, okay, great. What else do you need to continue to do this? How do we help you continue this journey? So, really building our partnerships and building the amount of women that we could help. That's really where I'm sort of focusing.
Well, and I think that's so well said, because also just having the basis of like learning fly fishing, because I don't know how you guys feel about it, but for like that one experience of just failing completely, I was like, maybe this isn't the sport for me. I don't want to dive into the expenses of it. I think it's good to have these people, within the community teaching you about the skill sets that you need and just the basics of learning about fly fishing, because there's
Yeah.
so much. You can really get somebody completely confused when you start using the knots, the tippets, the rods, the reels. Like, it's a lot of, it's a heavy language. I mean, there should be there's books and books that are heavy books talking about fly fishing.
Well, actually, Temma and I just did our very first intro to fly fishing online class, and that to your point, Lauren, about how there's so much out there. We really tried to do sort of the basics and make sure that we kept it really simple, but just talk through everything and get sort of that ground level in there. And also to your point of it's so important to learn the foundation, like have a was somebody else was asking me at some point about what would you recommend for someone who is starting out, and I'd say, man, if you can afford it, I would get some just really good casting lessons, because once you get a good cast, it's so important. And
Right.
trying to unlearn a bad cast is tough.
Yes, very, very well said. It can. I mean, I'm lucky I have a perfectionist husband of fly fishing that has told me numerous times 45 degrees from the boat. So I've got every time I'm on the boat, I'm like, 45 degrees from the boat, Lauren. It's good to have. I mean, you guys have such a great friendship. And it's so great that you guys are able to come together with the same mindset, the same work ethic, and just steamrolling this to come together. I know we said that the biggest problem is the biggest hurdle you're going through is just finding people to come and check out the gear. And I'm just looking at your guys' website right now. And it's just, I mean, I'm looking at this picture. You guys are both smiling together. And I'm like, you guys are just such a great friendship and the history. And I just know that this can go a really long, long distance. I was also just thinking, like, how great, fly fishing is also just generally expensive for gas.
Oh
Is there something, Temma, that you think about having like destinations fly fishing?
So you mean for Rise Into the Fly to put together destination trips?
Yeah.
So we've started talking a little bit about that. We may, I mean, it's not outside of California yet, but we do have an opportunity to bring a group of women up into the McLeod area for a weekend. Tahoe Fly Fishing Outfitters has been a huge supporter of ours, and they also run is it the McLeod River Outpost, Julia?
Yes.
And so he has offered that to us. He has offered to help with education if we bring a group of women out there, and casting. I mean, they have been fantastic with their support of us, and it's been pretty awesome. So yes, the short answer is yes, but we're going to start small.
Well, and I think that's like when I guess I mean when I say destinations, just because I know California has so many rivers, but they're not like, for a lot of people who probably, California is a huge state. I mean, there's a lot of people who live in California. Sometimes driving there with gas prices as high as they are, they're like, well, I have all this fishing stuff, but I can't afford to drive there.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And California has some of the highest gas prices. So, yeah, I fully understand. I feel that. But we were just talking to another organization, talking about, how California, how big it is and all that. We were talking to another organization about the idea of what if they do a lot of skiing for women adventures. And we were talking about combining a skiing and fishing adventure for some women, and how we could do that, because the Tahoe area has all this great skiing, but they also have amazing rivers. So I think that would be also a really fun concept if we can get it to come to fruition.
That sounds insanely fun. That's like, I love doing both of those things. Yeah. Like, can I join? I can help with like, I'll do some teaching. I'll help you guys do some instruction. We did a ladies' night of just basic fly fishing, and it was interesting. In the beginning, I was like, I wonder if we'll get filled up. And within a day, we were completely filled up. I was like, wow, I just didn't realize how much of a need, and how many women are super interested in fly fishing. And I'm in Missoula, but I just couldn't believe the amount of people who showed up in the amount of time it also filled up. So I know that maybe we're just our voices, or there's women out there who really want to fly fish, but they also are like, oh, I don't want to say I need this when I can cut out my coffee out of my coffee and can afford it, which is so ridiculous. I hate that when they're like, hey, have you looked at your expenses? Where can you cut things out? It's like, well, there's organizations out here that, like this one, that's like, get out in the water, enjoy it. You can afford this, and you don't need to cut out your daily expenses of groceries to make it happen.
One of my favorite stories is, and it hasn't quite come together, we're still working on it, but woman reached out to us, and she runs a shuttle service for the guides up on the lower Sacramento. And she said, hey, mostly the people who run our shuttles are women. and they have reached out to me and said they really want to learn fly fishing. And, is this something that you would want to partner with us on and put together a little bit of a clinic, if you will, for these women? Because she has a bunch of relationships with guides because she's shuttling their trucks and their trailers. And we obviously have, this nonprofit to help them with the gear. And so Temma and I were like, oh, heck yeah, we are all in. So we just started conversations with her about that. But I was like, how cool is that? Like, that just is, to me, is super neat. I love it.
And it's interesting. When you said shuttle drivers, because I feel like there's a lot of shuttle drivers here in Missoula, but they're college age. And it just occurred to me. I mean, I would have loved to learn how to fly fish in college, but I had absolutely no money. I mean, I was
Sure.
just thinking like, this would be such a great opportunity. Start in college. I just moved to Montana and I was like, oh, a river runs through it. I read that book and I really love it. And I just think like this would be a great opportunity for college students to like learn a new skill.
Yes.
Right.
And I think, okay, also, Julia, we haven't heard a fly fishing story from you yet.
Okay. So remember when I asked if it was okay to swear?
Yes, absolutely. Go for it.
So I was up in Alaska. I was fly fishing for silver salmons, and we were out in this body of water and this river. And so I caught the silver, and I'm like, and the guide was with me, and we're like running down. It's taken off, and then we're running down the river, and it was just this epic moment. And I slipped on the rock, and I fell, and I hit my knee, like right on the kneecap, hit it. And I got up. I managed to get up, and I could not walk. It was almost like a stinger, I just couldn't. And so I handed the rod and reel to my guide, and I was like, don't lose the fish. And he was like, no, I care more about you. I was like, I don't give a fuck about me. Don't lose this fish. I was like, it's more important. And he was like, nope. And he literally just picked me up and just, walked me over. And while he's got me like holding on to me, walking me to the bank, I'm still reeling. And then the fish went into like this, into these sticks. So he plopped me on the side of the river, ran out, got it untangled from there. And like I landed that fish, and I was just like, this is the most amazing, epic adventure that has ever happened in fishing. But it was super, super fun. It was just amazing. Alaska is just amazing, and I can't wait to someday go back.
Oh my gosh. I have to agree with that. Justin and I went to Alaska for the first time to the Kenai.
Yes, that's where I was.
Yeah, we were there this past summer and I caught a silver. We went with a guide, but then we went to do a mix between do it yourself. And we
Mhm.
went on this river and I caught one swinging the fly. And I just didn't, kind of like your experience, I just didn't know what to do. And I didn't have anyone yelling. I mean, Justin was kind of like, you got a fish. And I was like, okay. And I was like backing up like a dump truck. I was like, I was just like walking to the woods. like, like, he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I have no clue. I've never done this before. It's fighting. I'm just going to start walking to the forest. And then by the time I come back, I'll get into the bank. He's like, absolutely not. And anyways, he was like, use the reel. But my finger from, stripping the line, a bunch of learning curves, was all cut up. It was totally worth it. How did your knee heal up? Was it?
Oh, I have a picture. It actually was really funny. So my knee ended up not being so bad, but boy, my ankle, I guess,
Oh,
I have this picture, and it is truly hideous. It is just black and blue and swollen like a grapefruit. And it was just, and I'm like, it was worth it. It was so worth it. It was so amazing. But yeah, it was pretty darn ugly, I have to say.
yeah. Alaska is amazing. I have to say, like when we first went there, we were with our guide and we were fishing the Kenai. I think that was like such an eye opener seeing how many people were on the Kenai.
Right. It's
And we were
crazy.
catching so many pinks, but when I first was catching them, I was like, "Oh my gosh. Oh." And I kind of realized that like towards the end, no one was really excited about catching pinks. We're like, "Oh, that's just a pink." It was almost like your reaction when you told someone you caught a whitefish, like, "Uh-huh."
Yes,
You're like,
yes. Yeah.
"Okay, but it's so cool, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's a pink. There's too many of them." I was like, "All right, well." But yeah, what a great story. Temma, give us some information. How can people learn more about Rising to the Fly? If people are wanting to receive some of these donated clothes, rods, how do they go about that?
Sure. So people should go to our website, risingtothefly.com. We have different tabs on there, ways to donate, ways to receive. Um, and women who want to receive some items just need to fill out a short application. And then whoever receives it will route it to whoever's handling, if it's gear or if it's garb. We also post a lot on social media. So we have Rising to the Fly on Instagram and Facebook. And then our email, if anybody needs to get in touch with us about something specific or wants to donate, is info@risingtothefly.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys for your continued work to getting women on the water. I'm always so inspired when people take time out of their already incredibly busy schedule to do something like this, a nonprofit, to make the world a better place. I mean, you guys are just amazing. It always blows my mind. I'm like, wow, I know you're busy. I know both of you guys are so busy and you're just tackling on something that hasn't been done yet. So kudos.
Thank you.
Go to thefebruaryroom.com where you can access a complete library of our podcast and read more about our guests, their fishing stories, and favorite fly patterns. We're always looking for exceptional fly fishing yarns, and if you have one to spend, shoot us an email at info@thefebruaryroom.com. The February Room is always free, but if you feel like throwing a nickel in the pond, we appreciate any additional listener support. For companies and individuals interested in sponsorship opportunities, please contact us for our media kit. Thanks for stopping by the February Room, and we'll see you down here next week.